Fox News' Tucker Carlson is defending Alex Jones, and he's doing so in a very interesting way. So now Jones, who recently lost his 4th defamation case by default, meaning, of course, he didn't show up, handing documents that were requested by the court, is also in a little bit of trouble for possibly inciting January 6th, the Capitol rioters. Now, Tucker Carlson thinks, oh, no. The real problem here is government, bad. Joe Biden is coming after Alex Jones for making fun of him. And because he's such an important journalist, and he's really been right about so many things. In fact, I'm going to show you this video here. Take a look.
Now the committee has decided to shut down one of the most popular journalists on the right, Alex Jones. Yes, journalist. Jones is often mocked for his flamboyance, but the truth is he has been a far better guide to reality in recent years. In other words, a far better journalist than, say, NBC News national security correspondent Ken Delanian or Margaret Brennan of CBS. Alex Jones never bought the Russia hoax, not for a second. And if Jones sat down with Tony Fauci, he would ask him real questions, just as journalists are supposed to do. He wouldn't just slobber all over him. But Alex Jones makes fun of Joe Biden, so the January 6th committee is threatening him with prison. Now, the irony here, and there are many layers of irony here, but the main one is that Alex Jones isn't simply innocent of inciting crime on January 6th. Alex Jones actively worked to prevent crimes from taking place on January 6th. We're not running interference for Alex Jones, and we're not guessing about it. We happen to know this for a fact.
Oh, he happens to know it for a fact. Yes. And of course, he's referring to his propaganda documentary. Yeah, okay. Ridiculous, right? But the idea that Alex Jones being a guide to reality is probably the most absurd statement I've ever heard. Wow. Look, Alex Jones once said that he would eat his neighbors. If it came down to it, he would literally eat his neighbors.
I will eat your ass.
And that's not all. I mean, again, eating your neighbors aside, which I definitely say probably shouldn't do. Not in favor of that. But he also thinks weirdo things like it's the lizard people and the goblins that are working with the aliens and the democratic Satanists in order to take over the world and kill everyone. He said the members of the Democratic Party smell like sulfur and are hiding the life extension warp drive technology from humanity. He's talked about potbelly vampires that are stealing your babies, drinking their blood, and doing cannibalistic rituals to try to attain entry into higher dimensions. These are crazy things. Alex Jones is a crackpot grifter. Okay? That's what's going on. And this is what Tucker Carlson says is a journalist. A great journalist, very keyed into reality. What? What? And look, in a more real sense, and again, you could make fun of the crackpot conspiracies. I do all the time, just the insane stuff. But some of the other stuff that he's also said is actually very damaging to real people. Again, the thing he was taken to court for by the Sandy Hook families is the fact that he was saying the children that were murdered were crisis actors. And again, there's hours of tape on his show over the years. Because again, he's been talking about this since 2012, okay? And probably even longer. He's been talking about all this stuff, especially how, the mass shootings, that's just a way to take your guns. It's a way to take your guns. It's a false flag. They're not actually real. The kids weren't real. Nobody actually died. They're all crisis actors. Again, all of that are things that he talked about. And Tucker Carlson says, this is the man who must be protected. Now, here's the thing. I'm not saying the government should go after him for saying crazy things, insane things. No. Not at all. This is a very clear case of defamation, though, and it's being handled in civil courts. But I do think it is fair game to look into whether or not he had used his platform to incite violence. And I understand the line can be very fine. I think, though, as someone with a large platform, you need to be a little bit careful because people understand that, like, and this can happen in any community as well. So, online communities, and we've seen this, again, everywhere. And this is not a problem that's unique to the right. Content creators have a lot of, fans or people that listen to them. And you can start fights with other content creators and not even, as a content creator, you don't even have to say like, oh, go and attack this person, but some will do that on your behalf. No, that's a terrible thing. Now, if somebody does that, I don't think that content creator should be held liable. If you're, not saying, like, especially if you didn't say, like, go attack that person. Now, again, this is where it gets super, like, fine line kind of thing, right? There is ways that you can incite your audience or you can incite fans. Again, and we've seen this, Trump, and we've seen this with the attacks in the Sandy Hook families by unhinged InfoWars people, right? That if you hammer on this point or certain points or certain families or certain people, figures in certain ways, that can encourage people. It's called stochastic terrorism, essentially. You can get those people to be harassed and attacked and doxxed by your audience. Now, I don't want that. If I ever find out any of you have ever went after somebody like that, you are not part of my audience. I tell you what, you will no longer be welcome here. I'll ban you so goddamn fast. But here's the thing, right? That should be obvious. You don't go and attack people who think differently than you in horrible ways. You don't leak their personal information. You don't do that stuff. But there are some people that will end up doing so, and I don't necessarily think that in a lot of cases, and it really depends on the situation, depends on what happened, that the content creator should get in trouble for that. And so, again, this is what we're talking about with fine lines. Now, as far as Alex Jones is concerned, right? Again, millions of people watched Alex Jones, and he harped on this. The crisis actors. These are people that are coming after you. They're going to try to go, take your guns. They're the enemy. They're after you. They're gonna hurt you. They're after your children. You do all that stuff, then yeah, I think there should be some liability here in this, and that's what the Sandy Hook, civil suits were all about. Okay. Now, as far as Capitol riots, as far as January 6th, I think that is fair. Did Alex Jones help plan the riots? That's kind of my line, right? Did he plan the riots? Did he know that there was going to be violence, or did he think that there was going to be violence, or was he hoping for violence? And did he take steps to discourage violence to keep these protests peaceful? Those are the questions that I think we need to know in this situation. Okay? I think it's, again, perfectly fine for you to look in to see if Jones had done that, if he had taken measures to say, oh no, let's not do any violence, let's keep this entire thing peaceful, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, that's good. Then he wouldn't be in trouble. Then, okay, but what we have to do is we have to look into this. We have to look to see, and again, this is why this one is so important, because people ended up dying here on January 6th. There was death. There was injury. People were beaten. One person was shot there. Others died from their injuries or taking their own lives from the mental trauma. And so there needs to be some sort of accounting on if this was actually planned or not. And so, again, if Trump or Jones knew that violence was going to happen and encouraged that violence, well then, they got blood on their hands, I think, in my opinion. Now, I think there's a good case to be made against Trump in this regard. Again, you want to look at all the speech, you want to look at all his actions on this, and you want to look at what he did on January 6th itself. He didn't march to the Capitol. He went to the bunker and he watched with glee as all of this unfolded, as all of this happened. He had to be pressured multiple times to go out and make a statement. Please tell your people to stop. Tell them to go home. He had to record a statement like 4 or 5 times because it was too nice and didn't actually tell the protesters or the rioters to go home. And the one that we ended up seeing, it took 5 takes, and it was still like, we love you, we're very special, you're very special, but you should go home, and you should go home in peace. Even though they were definitely not home in peace. That's why I do support this commission. We should get the details from that. But one more thing here. And this is going back to Tucker Carlson. So I think Tucker Carlson, I'm going to make a comparison. Tucker Carlson is basically sanitized Alex Jones. No, he really is. I mean, he spreads the same types of conspiracies, not quite as outlandish, like, oh, the aliens they're taking over and the lizard people. But no, he substituted that with the immigrants. They're coming to replace you. I mean, he's a proponent of white replacement theory, that they're busting in the immigrants to come replace Americans, the true Americans or white people. So there's that. And he's also, again, spread conspiracy theories about COVID, about the vaccines, about, January 6th. And so all of this, what he is a slightly more palatable Alex Jones, who says almost the same types of things, but just replaces the villain. Instead of potbelly goblins and vampires, it's immigrants and Democrats. And it's the same type of thing. And so he's actually Alex Jones, but better at it, because he's not getting in trouble. He's still on Fox News. He's still making millions and millions of dollars, whereas Alex Jones, he's going to lose probably his shirt, which, of course, in many cases, sometimes that shirt just comes off without any warning anyway. But I'm talking about money. He's going to be broke by the time, they're done with him. And that's good, and he deserves that. But Tucker Carlson has essentially been passed the torch and is doing essentially the same thing. So that's the situation here when it comes to the conservative media. And it's not surprising at all to see Tucker Carlson defending Alex Jones, especially when it comes to this. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.